So hi everyone. You're all welcome to our February meetup. And this is the Women in RML, which is Women in Research, Monitoring and Evaluation and Learning. So we are hosting today's session, and we have a fantastic lineup of speakers in our midst, and I'll introduce them to you shortly. My name is Linda Nsifo. I am the convener of the Women in RML, which is basically a community of women who are striving, doing their best to accelerate their careers in research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. However, the sessions we have on a monthly basis are open to everyone. So yeah, it's good to have you all on the call. And while we are at it, as an initial activity, I would like us all to introduce ourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from, what you're doing, and what your expectations are. Why did you decide to jump on to this call? Yeah, it'll be good to know. And then, so while that is happening, we'll be doing a short icebreaker. It's called Where in the World? So yeah, just stay tuned. I'll move on to the agenda. I hope you can all see my screen, by the way.
Yes,
okay,
we can see it.
So great. Okay, so we are on item 1. And so we'll move straight into the icebreaker, which I believe will not take too much time. I don't want to eat into the time of our speakers. So yeah, so where in the world is this place? Can anyone make a guess? You can just indicate the country, but if you know the specific location, you can also drop it into the chat. It would be nice to have an idea. And maybe if you've been there, you can also let us know. Okay, any guesses? Should I give some clues, maybe? Okay, let's see. I see some responses. Someone said Switzerland, Greenland, Norway. Okay, I'll take one more guess, but the country begins with the letter C. Someone said somewhere in Europe. Croatia? No, please. Canada, no. Okay, let me narrow it down. So somewhere in Latin America.
Let's see.
Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, Chile. So that's it. Yeah. So that's Chile, the Patagonia. So I'm moving on to the next. Okay, so where in the world is this place? It's a beautiful view with mountains and a nice water body. Okay, somebody's asking for clues. Yeah, Catherine, you got it right. Yeah, yeah, Natalia too, you got it right. It's Canada. Great, great, great. Okay, the next one. This one, I think I will not give clues because if I do, oh yeah, Marcella got it right. Yeah, Yellowstone in the US. Brilliant. Okay, next one. So, okay. Where in the world is this beautiful place? Ah, Catherine, you're so good at this. Yes, it's the Maldives. So right. Okay, maybe we can do 2 more. Ah, you like traveling a lot. Oh yeah, you dream of traveling a lot. Okay. Wow, good, 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 good. So Chu got it right. So it's Norway. Yes, this is Norway. And yeah, Virginia also got it right. Okay. Where do we think this place is? Ah, Chu got this one right too. This is in Morocco, Marrakesh to be exact. Great. Thanks for all your responses. Thanks for your participation so far. So we can take this last one. Wow. Yes, Chu got it right. So it's the Serengeti. Specific country? Can someone give me the specific country? Kenya is close. Yes,
Tanzania.
Tanzania. Super. Yeah. I think there's time for one more. I still have one more. This one is pretty easy, I guess. Yes, India. Yes, it's the Taj Mahal. Yes. Brilliant. So we're done with this segment. I'll stop screen sharing now. And I will invite our speakers. But before they get onto the stage, I will introduce them. And then we can listen to them and engage with them. So I will just quickly get their profiles and then we can learn more about them. Okay, so I will start with Katherine Haugh. She's the CEO and founder of the Convive Collective. And she has been a longtime thought leader and expert in the philanthropic sector. Before starting the Convive Collective, she began her career as a skeptic and had her mind changed about the value of philanthropic investment through evaluation and learning. She leads philanthropic change, writes, and speaks about how philanthropies can unlock and measure their impact through strategic learning. And having begun her career as an evaluator, measuring the impact of philanthropic initiatives, Katherine became quickly interested in helping organizations digest data and make sense of it through visual storytelling. From there, she grew into a visual storytelling expert and applied her skills in the evaluation sector in such a way that she earned a reputation of turning complexity into clarity. Prior to launching Convive, Katherine worked at UN World Food Programme, Innovation Hub for East Africa as an evidence and learning specialist, where she co-created the hub's theory of change, strategy, and learning framework. Throughout her career, she has worked at several related organizations, including at the Global Knowledge Initiative as a senior advisor for organizational learning, USAID Learning Lab as a monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning specialist, and at Innovation Network, a nonprofit and philanthropic evaluation firm. And in terms of what she loves, so she loves to learn about how adults actually learn according to the learning sciences and how to live and work according to your human design. So that's Katherine. Let's welcome her with a virtual clap. And then we are also privileged to have Leah Mayka Mumbo, and she's a consultant specializing in learning and evaluation and research, program design, strategy, and facilitation based in Nairobi, Kenya. She's originally Argentinian American. Leah has lived, worked, and studied across sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, the UK, and the US. She has 14 years of cross-sector experience working with social enterprises, nonprofits, NGOs, foundations, government agencies, and the United Nations. Leah holds a BA in sociology from Northeastern University and an MSc in international development management from the London School of Economics and Political Science. So let's welcome Leah as well. It's great to have you. And actually, this is our first time having two speakers, presenting on the topic. So yes, this is great. It's a great time to have you both. And the topic we'll be diving into is how to design creative learning sessions that actually help teams learn. So I'd like to invite you, Katherine and Leah, to take us away.
Thank you so much, Linda, and thanks for such a wonderful introduction to both of us. That was really lovely. And thank you, everybody, for being here. We are so excited to be in your company today. Women who, Merle, are totally kindred spirits of ours, and we feel like we're in the company of friends today, and we're very, very passionate about this topic. So we're just so grateful to be here. So without further ado, let's dive in. So what we were imagining doing is actually just a quick round of introductions, nothing more than everything that Linda has already told you about us, which was fabulous. and a quick icebreaker that connects to one of the things that we wanted to dive in with you today about learning and the learning sciences. We'll do an opening quiz, and we'll explain why we're doing that as an effective learning technique, and then we'll cover the 5 key tenets of effective learning design, and each tenet has a set of tools that we've developed. So we'll share more with you about what those tools look like. We'll do a closing quiz, and then we'll save some time at the very end of our session for Q&A. We'd love to hear from you about your key takeaways and let you know how you can continue to learn with us. So that's what we've got planned. So just by way of quick introductions and an icebreaker, my name is Katherine Haugh. I'm the CEO and founder of the Convive Collective, as Linda so eloquently explained. And I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Mayka Mumbo, who's the learning experience designer at Convive. And we are both evaluators who have a passion for helping people learn from evaluation and research. And we're so excited to present on this topic today. And just a quick snippet about the Convive Collective. We are a creative and strategic learning partner for climate-focused philanthropies. So we help philanthropies use the best of their collective knowledge through evaluation, research, lived experience to evolve and adapt their strategies to have greater impact towards a thriving planet, which is what we're all about at Convive. And just a quick note about why we are so passionate about this topic today. So I mentioned that both Leah and myself have a background in evaluation and research, and we've spent a considerable part of our careers conducting research and evaluations on trying to understand how change happens and what works in philanthropic or other types of investment in creating environmental change or positive social change. And we've both struggled in different ways and sometimes similar ways over the course of our career in finding that we've spent lots of time on developing really incredible research products, but to have no one really engage with them or use them for learning or decision making. And so we've been very intrigued by this challenge because we've faced it head on. And I'm sure that there are folks in this virtual space together with us who are probably nodding their heads like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with that right now. I'm seeing some thumbs up and head nods. So I know that we're in the right company. And what Leah and I are really passionate about is the cognitive and learning sciences field, which is a field of professional practice and study that really dives into really understanding and unpacking how people actually learn from information cognitively and in a collaborative way. And we think that these 2 areas of practice with evaluation and research and the cognitive and learning sciences work have yet to come together and have a high five. And so we think that they're reaching for each other, which is why we put this image on the screen. And we're excited to start finding the interconnections and share with you what we've learned in our deep dive of the cognitive learning sciences and how we bring that into our work in the evaluation and research field. And so you may be wondering, what are our sources for what we're about to share with you? So we'll tell you up front that our 3 key sources for what we'll be presenting with you today are these 3 phenomenal books. The first one, Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. The next, Evidence-Informed Learning Design. And the last one is How People Learn. These all include incredibly rich studies over decades of work that actually explain how people learn, why we know that's true, and what that means in the modern workplace or in training environments. The reason I think why the learning sciences has kind of slipped under the radar from the evaluation community is because it often is used to support training or education professions or sectors. But I think there's a lot to be unearthed from the learning sciences that's directly relevant for helping organizations and teams learn, and us as adults in the modern workplace use these principles and practices and to learn well. And so we wanted to follow Linda's lead and also do another icebreaker, but it has a very specific purpose. And we want to ask you to please tell us in the chat, what are you doing when you have your aha moments? So when things just seem to crystallize for you, or you have a new idea, or you figured out a different way to solve a problem or to think about something, what are you doing? Are you walking your dog, reading your book? You just woke up from a nap, lying awake in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, solving all the world's problems. It looks like Anna's doing that. I do that sometimes too. Ooh, in the middle of the night, daydreaming, walking, cooking. Wonderful. Keep them coming. So the reason why we asked you this icebreaker question, and you can already see some of the responses in the chat are kind of explaining this. Oh, cool. Singing, Linda. That's awesome. Is what we have discovered very interestingly is that there's something in the learning sciences called the incubation effect, and you may or may not have heard of it before. Basically, research, dozens of studies over decades have shown that we do our most creative thinking and discover solutions to challenges when our exposure to new information is interspersed with periods of rest, where we're actively resting, or we're doing something where our brain is going into autopilot. So this could look like jogging, listening to music, driving, singing, being in the shower, walking your dog, taking a nap, sleeping in the middle of the night. There's research that supports why we have those epiphanies either first thing in the morning or at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the night, because when our brain is in this autopilot mode or in a restful state, this actually activates what's called the default mode network, or for short, the DMN, which connects dozens of regions in the brain that uses associative unconscious processing power that helps us make sense of the information that we've taken in. And the reason why we wanted to include this, because A, it's a fun icebreaker to kick us off, but also because it's really important for us when we think about learning experience design, because in the modern workplace, we're constantly bombarded by new information and asks on our attention. And as a result, we're actually compromising our ability to digest what we're learning and hearing and do higher level creative and strategic thinking. So what does this mean for us, practically speaking, when we think about our evaluation work and how we design sessions with the incubation effect? So whether we're designing an hour-long virtual touch point with our colleagues to digest some evaluation material or some to learn together, or we're designing a week-long learning retreat, we always plan with the incubation effect in mind. And what that looks like in an agenda design is, for example, thinking about people coming into the room where you're doing an icebreaker or a welcome like we just did. People's energy tends to be high, but we're actually asking less of them, usually cognitively. And then we always kick off with a high intellect or high cognitive activity where we're presenting new information. It may be challenging or really rich to digest. And we always have a break after those types of activities, not just because it's fun to sip coffee and do chit chat, but because it's also more effective. And what we always do in those breaks is some combination of either a game where we're inviting people into a different way of acting and connecting, which has other benefits as well, or we intentionally create kind of a small period of rest and disengagement by saying, okay, we're going to play music now, and we're actually going to ask everybody, don't go away and start chit-chatting or responding to emails, but just let the information sit with you, because these activities help to activate that DMN and invite people into that creative and strategic thinking that's really critical for actually learning from what we're presenting to them. So then we do another high intellect activity, and then we wrap up with closing reflections, where we always give people time at the end of an experience to have quiet time to reflect on what meaning are they making from what we've presented, rather than bombarding them with information, thinking more is better, and then sending them out the door, knowing well that they're going to forget most of what we've presented and not tap into higher level thinking unless we give them those moments of downtime for digestion and rest. And so the other thing that we always do when we're thinking about how to integrate the incubation effect is to have table toys, a drawing area on the table. So this just looks like taking a piece of flip chart paper and putting it on the table where people are sitting and leaving markers out, and also creating breaks that encourage creativity. So the reason why we do this is because you may be familiar, when you're thinking about something and you're kind of like flipping a pen in your hands, or you're doodling while you're listening. These are the types of things that actually help to facilitate that deeper level creative thinking and strategic thinking and activate this network in our brain. And so that not only adds creativity and a different way to engage, but is also effective. And I will pass it over to Leah to explain the story behind the picture on the right.
Thanks, Kat. So this picture is a workshop we did last year in South Africa with USAID. It was a group of people that really needed to talk together about strategy in an intensive 2-day session. They were formulating a theory of change together, but had not met in person before. So we were engaging them to learn in a variety of different ways. They're focused on wildlife conservation. So we had split them up into teams, and for all of our breaks, we were focusing on the endangered species they were protecting. So in this photo, this team is trying to make a model of a rhino out of clay in like a 10-minute break. You can see they're smiling, they were laughing, they're getting to know each other. So they were, one, like learning and reflecting on the actual animals that they're protecting. Two, bonding with each other in a way that creates psychological safety for them to actually share their candid opinions with people that they were just meeting for the first time. And three, engaging their visual and tactile senses to kind of set in the things that we were talking about.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. Great. So maybe just a note, because I think Katherine, yours was the first question. Please put questions, comments, reactions. Love this, hate this. Where's the exact study I wanted in the book? Please tell us in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond in real time, but then we'll keep tabs on them towards the end of the conversation. So thanks for kicking us off, Katherine. And I'm seeing another one come in, so I'll keep carrying on. We'll come back to it. So what we wanted to do now is have an opening quiz. And you might be thinking, here we go, whoops. WTF, why are they quizzing me? I didn't show up for this. I don't like taking tests. I didn't know this was going to be part of it. Linda, never invite Kat and Leah back again. But the reason why we're doing a test at the beginning of our session is strategic, and also to kind of walk the talk on something that we learned. So you may be familiar with a concept called the forgetting curve. And you can see two graph illustrations up on the slide, which basically talk about this concept, which says, this is again very well supported in the literature, that in an hour, students, in the case of this example, will forget more than half of what they learn. And in a day, more than, they'll only remember a third of it. So 3/4 of it will be gone, and it doesn't stop there. So the curve kind of continues to slant downwards. And you may be thinking, well, I'm not a student, I'm a working professional. The studies are the precise same for modern professionals. So whether you're a student in a training environment, or you're a professional going to an evaluation workshop, or going to a research discussion or a lecture, the forgetting curve is a natural human tendency and is really rapid and intense. So one of the ways that we've learned through our studies of the learning sciences to interrupt the forgetting curve is through the use of quizzes and tests. This is an extremely effective technique because it draws on what we now know is called the retrieval practice effect, otherwise known as the testing effect. And basically, the reason why that's so effective is because when you ask people to retrieve their knowledge from memory, basically, in effect, what that's doing is making that knowledge easier to call up again in the future. And what we found super fascinating about this is that when you test or you ask people, hey, what did you learn? Or what was covered in that session? Or why is that important to you? Or test them, hey, this is what we covered. Was this true or false? Like what we're about to do. it's even more effective doing that than re-exposure to the original content. So that's why we incorporated it into our session, because we only have an hour with you and we wanted to make it as impactful as possible. And doing it this way with joining us in the quiz is actually more impactful for you as our learners today than having a full other hour with Leah and myself. So that's why we wanted to put it in here. And without further ado, we will invite you to jump over into Menti with us. And you could do this in a couple of ways. You can go to menti.com, or you can follow the QR code and use the code that's up on the screen. So I'll give you a minute to get there, and then I'm going to share my screen and walk us through the questions. Okay, let me get over here. Okay. Let's see. And maybe, Leah, if you don't mind, would you mind putting the code in the chat? Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Linda. You're on top of it. Facilitator extraordinaire. Okay. Thank you. Okay, is everybody doing okay? Thumbs up. Catherine, you look confused. Are you okay? What's happening with Menti? You got a thumb up? Okay. Or are you seeing the questions already and you're like, okay, cool. That's exactly what we wanted to create. So these questions are not easy. I'll just be upfront. So we know that we're in the company of very intelligent, incredible thinkers here. So we gave you really tough questions that may shock you. They shocked me when I learned about this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Ooh, okay. Wait, let me go backwards. Sorry. Did I do something wrong? Leah,
I think it
did
will
I start with
work
the
now.
first?
We started with number 5, but it will take people back
Okay.
to number now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so listening to someone else explain something to you is more impactful for learning, aka you learn more from it, than putting it in your own words. Okay, we're getting lots of falses here. Give you a few more seconds. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, we're getting a true. Somebody's keeping it interesting. Couple trues. Love it. Okay, about 10 more seconds. Okay, what is the correct answer? You can see it in very small at the bottom of the screen. The correct answer is false. Listening to someone else explain something to you is more impactful for learning than putting in your own words. That is absolutely not true. We'll explain why in a moment when we go back to the slides. All right, this one is a spicy one. Everyone has a different learning style. We should design according to people's learning styles. Okay, I'm seeing some trues fly in, a couple of falses. Ooh, lots of trues. So many trues. This is so fun. I'm having way too much fun with this. Okay. Lots of trues. We'll give you 10 more seconds for those of you who are on the fence. Okay, a couple more falses trickling in. Okay, a couple more trues, a couple more falses. What is the correct answer? This is false. This is absolutely 100% false and shook me to my core when I read the research about learning styles. You'll hear more from me and Leah about this, but we both hated that this wasn't true because we love a personality test. And it just seemed like, yes, we're all different. We should design for our preferences, which we should design for our preferences, but not for our learning styles. Learning styles have no evidence that they do actually exist. So super interesting. And I hope because this was so shocking, it actually created an emotional experience for you that will make the learning stickier. Okay, next. Next question. Learning should be easy. If it's too challenging, it will deter people from participating. What do we think? True. Okay, some false, some true. Ooh, it's neck and neck. Oh, wow. This one is really neck and neck. Ooh, okay, a couple more false. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds for those on the fence. Wow, we're almost at a 50-50 split. So I'm going to have to press enter and tell you that this is false. I think we'll go into this in a moment, but there's a misconception that learning should be easy, but actually when it's more difficult, we learn more. And we'll explain with you about what researchers have to say about desirable difficulty, because we don't want undesirable difficulty, which is where it gets a little bit gray, but you'll see that with us in a moment. Okay, the last two. To interrupt our natural forgetting curve, we need to check in, back in on what we've learned frequently. True or false? Okay, I'm seeing lots of truths, lots of truths. One false, keeping it interesting. Love that. Okay, a couple more falses, mostly true. And yes, most of you got it right. Yes, we do need to frequently check back in on what we've learned to interrupt the forgetting curve that you already saw, so that we ask ourselves to retrieve information in the depths of our mind, making it easier to recall again. This is really, really important and important for learning experience design beyond the actual event that you facilitate, but thinking about the aftermath. Okay, and last but not least, I think I accidentally started with this one. Ooh, okay. Exhibiting learning behaviors is more impactful than speaking about them. This is indeed 100% true. Learning champions and how learning behaviors spread to actually make a learning culture and a learning organization. So thanks everybody for participating. I'm now going to stop sharing the Menti and come bring us back over to our slides, where now we are going to dive into the 5 key tenets of effective learning design and the associated tools. And you'll notice that each of the tenets that we're going to be covering is connected to one of those 5 questions that we just answered. So if you're like, wait, I need to dive in on question number 2, I'm so confused, learning styles, I thought they were a thing. We'll come back to that in our presentation. So the first tenet is to put what you learn in your own words. So there's a concept in the learning sciences called elaboration, which is basically the process of giving new material meaning or finding additional layers of meaning by expressing it in your own words and also connecting it to what you already know. So this looks like, when somebody's telling you, okay, this is what happened, if you would say, okay, let me just summarize. So basically what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. That's a really effective learning technique to actually do that digestion and regurgitation. That's called elaboration. And a tip for making that learning even stickier is explaining how that new material connects to your prior knowledge. So you would say, oh, that's interesting. That connects to an article I read last week or a conversation I had with my boss. Or you can also say that doesn't connect to what I've learned in the past because I always thought I was a visual learner, for example. But it's making the connection that really helps it stick. So the tools that we use from a learning experience design perspective is peer-to-peer explanation. So this is when we ask participants, they might be our colleagues or clients or workshop participants, to say, how does this information relate to your previous professional experience? And tell each other in your own words how this connects to what you already know and what meaning you're making of it. And I think that's something that we probably do all the time in workshop design, but it's really effective to make time for that. And then secondly, we encourage using visual frameworks or metaphors to describe the content. So super interestingly, research has shown that a powerful form of elaboration is actually through the use of metaphor or visual frameworks. So this would look like if Leah would explain something to me, I'd be like, okay, so basically it has 3 parts, or it's like a wave crashing on the shore, or like if I think about it, it's like a rainbow. I don't know, I'm really going extra with these metaphors, but basically it's taking the content and putting them into a structure, which is giving them meaning. So we do like to encourage a lot of times people to draw with us in sessions, but you don't always need to actually put pen to paper. It's more about the thinking exercise of ways to elaborate on the content that you receive and make meaning out of it. So this is why we had said listening to someone else explain something to you is more impactful for learning than putting it in your own words. So listening to a lecture or a podcast, great for learning. We need that kind of passive, intake of information. But where the real impactful learning comes in is when you're in a small group or you're home after, a day of work, and you actually turn to your partner or your dog or whoever is around you and say, this is what happened today, and this is why it was so important and interesting for me in my own words. So there's tenet number 1, and I will pass it over now to Leah for tenet number 2.
Okay, so this relates to the controversial quiz question about learning styles, where we all think we have a learning style, and we definitely have learning preferences, but the research shows that they don't equate to better learning outcomes. We have things that we like more, but it doesn't result in more learning necessarily. And so at least for the seeing community, obviously this is different for differently abled people who need different types of materials and ways of engaging with things. But for the seeing community, research shows that pairing images with text is easier, no matter what, for everyone, helps us with our comprehension and recall of information. So we are all, as we are able to see, visual learners. So the more we can engage all of our senses, really, and this has a lot to do with experience design and human-centered design. How are we engaging the different ways that we feel and perceive the world into our learning experience to make it stick? And so Kat and I engage in a lot of visual tools in our work to reinforce what's written or said. We're going to give you we have some examples here. So some of them are, creating digital visual summaries. We have one here. I think the first example is from our work together at the World Food Program. This is a visual version of what was a much more complicated theory of change that we distilled into something that has icons, it has color coding, it has some very simple visuals, and really distills down the points in the pathway to make this something that people can digest and refer back to easily. And from our own experience, we keep seeing this everywhere. We developed it like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still popping up. It's still being shared because it distilled things in a way that both conveys the information and gives visual cues that help folks remember what it's all about. The next example is how we do this in person. So if you've ever seen any of Kat's work, she's an extremely talented visual graphic recorder, but don't let that intimidate you. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be extremely skilled at drawing or need like fancy materials to do this. On the right-hand side, you'll see the session that this is that same session in South Africa that I facilitated using just color coding and really thick markers and paper that the hotel provided, just pasted on the walls. So we had a much bigger space for visual engagement. And we used color coding to associate with the different phases of the theory of change. And that was reflected in also other written materials that we had. So everyone's thinking like entry points are yellow, long-term outcomes are green. So giving like some other visual cue to help folks remember and engage with information. I think like another thing that Kat and I discussed in preparing for this was how using visuals creates like another active participant in the room, which is the visual that you've created together. And especially in diverse spaces where some folks' voices come across louder than others, visual cues like big note-taking like this and graphic recording help to make everyone's point take up equal space and be remembered equally, no matter who said it, so that you can't deny it was said and that you can continually refer back to and recall information that's come up in a conversation. Our third example, Kat is going to tell us more about.
Yeah. And I would say one thing too that Leah and I have experienced with kind of putting the visuals up on the wall and facilitating in that way is that it also helps interrupt the natural forgetting curve, because when you're working with people over a full day or multiple days, then we always see that people will kind of like point back to different areas of the room and be like, wait, remember we talked about that this morning, it's over there, you know? And I think that's another way of actually having the visual be an active participant with you in the room, and helped interrupt that natural forgetting curve and help people to do kind of the mapping of everything that has been discussed, and keep those conversations relevant even as time is moving on. So the last example that I want to share is something that I worked on when I worked with the USAID Learning Lab, which has a publicly available set of 3 fun and games for helping people internalize data. So you can take a look at there. It's still up there on the USAID Learning Lab. And one of them, my personal favorites, was creating newspaper headlines from evaluation data. So that basically this exercise, you print out some material like information. It could be an evaluation or a report or research, a one-pager that you hand out to people and let them read it and passively engage with it. But the fun does not stop there. Then you ask them, okay, here's a piece of paper. If you were to make a newspaper headline about what you read, what would you put on here? So people would say like, breaking news, this happened, or here's a pull quote from this person, or a couple of stories. And it was super interesting every time we've done this exercise, just to see what stuck with people and the meaning and interpretation they made of the content, which is where the real learning and dialogue comes after that, where we can see like, oh, that's so interesting. This is the interpretation we all had, or we told different stories, or we found different stories in this evaluation content. So this exercise is well supported by the research, so we wanted to bring it up. And so in summary, unfortunately, everyone does not have a learning style. And we should, of course, design according to our preferences and comforts, and always design with your participant in mind, of course, but not according to their learning style. And if anything, we are all visual learners, is what we've learned in this tenet. So number 3, the tenet is to facilitate desirable difficulty and celebrate when the learning feels hard. So there's a concept in the literature called effortful retrieval, which basically means that we want our participants to experience desirable difficulty, otherwise known as effortful retrieval. And the reason for that is because the difficulty of the task to kind of retrieve the information makes the learner or participant work harder to construct an interpretation that makes sense. And the harder the task, the more the learning will stick. And so one of the ways that we apply this concept around desirable difficulty is to facilitate challenge scenarios. So I might say to Leah or to a participant in a session, like, tell me about an experience that you had that was really challenging. She might say, okay, well, I had this crazy mandate for this amazing evaluation, but no resources and no time. And then I would say, okay, stop there. Now ask everybody in the room, what would you have done if you were in Leah's position in this challenge? So to create the right container for desirable difficulty and learning. And then we hear from everybody. Somebody might say, oh, well, I would have lobbied for more resources. Somebody else said, I would have done it this way. And then we do come back to Leah and say, okay, what did you actually do? And what did you learn? And that really has created, in our experience, a wonderful dialogue where you invite people to step into the shoes of somebody else and to be in the challenge moment in a learning capacity, even if they themselves didn't experience the challenge. And so I think the general principle with this one is to celebrate and expect that learning sometimes will feel hard. And that's okay, because that's when we know that we are really learning, if the difficulties are of the desirable type. Thanks so much for enjoying that exercise. I love it too. So unfortunately, no, learning should not be easy. And actually, we don't want it to be easy, because when we master difficult things, the level of empowerment and satisfaction that comes from that, I'm currently learning a language, so I feel like I know it well, is so wonderful. So we don't want to rob ourselves of that joy. So yes, if it's too challenging, it will deter people from participating. Absolutely, that is not true. Back over to you, Lee.
So this one, review, pause, and recall again, is about retrieval, so spaced retrieval of knowledge. And that means that we come back to information after putting it down again and again, and actually the longer time there is between when we learn it and when we retrieve it again, the more likely we are to internalize it in the long term, which goes against what a lot of us are taught in school, a lot of how studying happens with like cramming to do well on the exam. There are short-term benefits of that kind of learning, but they're short-term. If you've ever studied for a test that on a subject that you now know have no idea or don't remember anything about, you know that that's true. It just leaves your brain immediately. So in our professional context, how we can incorporate this science is to think about the learning experiences we're creating for people, and know for sure that in our one perfectly designed learning session where we have all the visual tools and the perfect quizzes and summaries, no matter how great your one session is, most of it will be forgotten. So planning for follow-up a week or months after in different ways that engage different types of retrieval. So reflection is a form of retrieval that we use in evaluation a lot. This personal connection, connecting emotionally with information, building in ways to re-engage your learners on the subject after the fact will make it more likely to stick in the long term. This is an example from Convive. So Convive's made this decision-making styles quiz. So even though we don't really have science to show that learning styles are real, decision-making styles have more truth to them, and they're more about preference anyway. So it is a way for us to connect with our clients and ask them to engage emotionally with the work that we're doing. Maybe you ask at the beginning and at the end, which is when scientifically we know folks have more feelings about things. What's one word that describes how you feel after a session? Because we know that people remember how they feel more than they remember content, or they'll remember content more when they have strong feelings about it. So engaging different types of retrieval in a spaced, longer term fashion will help your material stick. So it's something to consider, especially if you work on an evaluation team that's engaging with your program team throughout the year, or if you have clients that are return clients that you're trying to drive a point home with. Thinking about designing beyond each event on its own can really help with long-term learning.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lee. So in summary, to interrupt our natural forgetting curve, we need to check back in on what we've learned frequently. And last but not least, our last and final tenet is to model learning mindsets and behaviors. So this one is my absolute favorite. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, these tips, these tools that Leah and Kat have thrown at us too much, I'm never going to be able to pull this off. We have probably the most impactful and in a way easy tool, which is exhibiting the learning behaviors and mindsets yourself at your place of work. So research has shown that modeling key learning characteristics is more influential for actually creating a learning culture where people are investigating and asking questions and checking assumptions than just kind of speaking about those learning behaviors or what that means theoretically. And these individuals, often referred to as learning champions in the literature, spread learning behaviors by walking the talk on learning mindsets and characteristics. And so what we recommend in this area is be a learning leader. That sounds a little bit cheesy, but I feel like it's perfect to kind of wrap up our presentation with, no matter your role or title. And what that means is it's two kind of like very direct and simple examples. Ask questions when you're confused. So say, I'm not getting this, I'm confused. Can you say that again? This displays vulnerability. And I think also creates then the environment where somebody else could say, yeah, actually, I'm also confused, or, you know, you were confused before, but I'm confused now, and creating that space, safe space for actually asking the questions that we have and feel safe in doing that. And also admitting mistakes, and making that normal. So being like, oh, shoot, I must have missed that. Here's what I'll do differently now, as an example. And there's a ton of literature, amazing literature around the growth mindset, which is very much connected to learning, that I would love to go into, but we only have 9 minutes, so I will chug us right along. So last but not least, exhibiting learning behaviors is more impactful than speaking about them. Yes, that is 100% true. So what we imagine doing now is actually closing with the quiz. And the reason why we wanted to do that, you might be wondering, like, now another test, WTF, why? Because testing after learning new content is effective for retention and it's participatory. This way you can check your understanding, and also we can learn about how well the concepts came across to you. And of course, we know we're in the company of evaluators, so we love a pre-post because it's the same quiz. And so maybe we'll run through that very quickly, if that's okay. Linda, or you can tell us, forget the quiz and let's
That's
just go right
perfect.
into
Let's just get into it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go for it. So
Yeah.
please join us again on the same Menti link and code. And Linda has already put it in the chat for us. We'll move over there very quickly because we want to hear from you about your questions and key takeaways. Okay, let me just get this all set up here. One moment. Sorry, everybody. Here we go. All right, and we're off. Okay, hope everybody's inside. All right, here we go. We are presenting. Okay. Listening to someone else explain something to you is more impactful for learning than putting it in your own words. True or false? Tell us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your votes. I'm going to call it yes. The answer is false. Most of you got it right. It's more important to put it into your own words than to listen to somebody else. It's more impactful for learning. Number 2, everyone has a different learning style. We should design according to people's learning styles. Ooh, I'm seeing lots of false come in strong. I think I have a feeling that we shocked everybody in this room with this learning styles tidbit. Great. So most of you got that one right. Yes, it is indeed false. There's no such thing as learning styles. We need to get rid of that because I still see it everywhere. Learning should be easy. If it's too challenging, it will deter people from participating. What do we think? False, false, false. Almost no truths. Okay, we got one true. Okay, the correct answer here is false. Learning should not always be easy. In fact, when it's challenging, that means it's stickier and we're learning more. Next one, number 4, to interrupt our natural forgetting curve, we need to check back in on what we've learned frequently. In fact, this is what we're doing right now. Awesome. True, true, true. Wonderful. That is indeed the correct answer. True. And last but not least, exhibiting learning behaviors is more impactful than speaking about them. Awesome. We're seeing lots of truths, which, yes, that is the correct answer. Awesome. The retention is high. We love to see that. So now I'll stop sharing this screen and just close out. We have 5 minutes left. Sorry, we didn't leave as much time for Q&A, but what we would love to hear from you now is questions that you have, and also about your key takeaways from today's session. So what did you learn? How does that confirm or relate to your previous professional experience? Please tell us in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And we'll also put here some extra credit, because I think we probably have some high achievers in this group also, to explain your key takeaways from today in your own words to a friend or a colleague, again, because that will help the learning stick. And feel free to post that on LinkedIn if you'd like, tag us in it, we'll comment. Awesome, I'm seeing some takeaways come in. Thanks, Marcella. Yes, I think we do have the recording, Linda, right? We do have the recording available.
Yes, it will be made available.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Joan. I love the scaffolding of the agendas, the importance of visuals. Learning shouldn't be easy. Thanks, Shauna. Yes, Lauren, exhibiting learning behaviors as a leader is a great tidbit. We love that one too. Awesome. Please keep these coming. And maybe I'll just close. We have a few more minutes, but I'll just close and then see if there's any maybe final comments or questions. How can we keep learning together? So if you enjoyed this presentation and want to keep learning with us, I would say our recommendation is to please follow me on LinkedIn. We're posting weekly on behalf of Convive about insights, tips, research that we're finding, tools that we're testing and seeing utility with. So we love to share generously and openly. So please follow me on LinkedIn to stay in touch with us about what we're learning. And then if you're wanting to put this learning into practice, please feel free to reach out to us for a virtual coffee on our website. We'll put the link in the chat. If you have a developmental evaluation or a strategic learning retreat, or you're looking for training or coaching of learning champions for yourself or within your organization, or creating and implementing a learning agenda, that's all the types of things that we absolutely love to do. And we'd love to connect with you if you're looking for support in that dimension. I'm loving all the comments in the chat. Thanks, Marcella. And thanks, Leah, for putting the link in there. And maybe I will open it up. Yes, the learning style scam. That's a good way of capturing it. And I'll pass it back over to you, Linda, maybe to wrap us up. And please, maybe just the last comment from us is please put questions in the chat. If we didn't get to something and you're still noodling on it, then we'll know what to be posting on LinkedIn, because we really consider you all as members of our community and very much our people. And just behalf on both Leah and myself, we have loved participating and presenting today. So thank you for inviting us, Linda. And we're so excited to be part of this community. So thanks, everyone. Back over to you, Linda.
Wow, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much, Katherine and Leah. Shall we just give them a virtual round of applause? Thank you so much for the wealth of knowledge you've shared with us today. And I'm sure you can see from the comments that everyone was attentive and they learned so much that they're going to apply to their work. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Okay, so just a few announcements before we hop off. So I'm going to share a link for feedback. So please do also provide feedback on how today's session went, provide suggestions on what we can discuss during our monthly sessions. And also, if you're new to Women in RML, I would encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And then we are also on X. So we will also provide updates about our sessions coming up in subsequent months. And also we have a YouTube channel. So you can also visit our YouTube channel for the sessions that we've had since we started these talks or these sessions last year. I would encourage you to just go back and then listen, take notes, share with a friend. Yeah, so we can all grow together as well. And also, yes, do well to connect with Katherine and Leah as well beyond this meeting. And yeah, I'm sure I would love to grow with all of you as we move along. Yeah. So thank you all for joining. Thank you once again, Leah and Katherine. We hope that you will come again, for a more hands-on, engaging session. I personally enjoyed it, and I'm sure our participants can say the same. So with that, I would like to close the session, and thanks to everyone who joined. Thank you all for making time. Looking forward to seeing you next month as well.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Thanks, Linda.
You're
Thanks, Kat.
welcome.
Thanks, Leah.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Bye.